How to build a Blackgates Sweep Pea 5-inch gauge locomotive. Part 39. Duplicating the missing motion bracket and fitting both parts to the chassis. Checking the alignment of the crosshead guides and the reverser with the cab held in position. The new motion bracket that I made now looks very similar to the original one. The main difference is I haven't drilled the hole yet for the fitting which holds the crosshead guide in position at this side. I made a mark on the undrilled part using a Sharpie felt tip pen. And now it's top tip time. In order to drill the hole, I need to fit the part into the machine vise on my drilling machine. I'm using a piece of wood underneath the part to stop it bending because gunmetal is a very soft metal. This is not proper engineering, I know, but it works for me. And in no time at all, the part has a hole in it. I've placed both of the crosshead guides back to back, and both pieces are now fitted into the vise in my workshop. Note the two brass pieces across the jaws, which stops the parts from being marked. For this job I used a round file, a square file, and finally I finished the job using a piece of coarse emery cloth wrapped around a piece of wood. I think this will be fine. Further cleaning up is required, but I will do this off camera. I don't want to waste too much time by showing what are very basic and simple operations. When I bought this engine, it only had one motion bracket. I need to make another one of these. It's a fitting that holds the crosshead guide bar to the motion bracket. It's a really simple thing to make, and I'll show it in a future episode. To be honest, at this stage in this video, I'm getting a bit nervous. What happens if the crosshead guide bars do not align with the crosshead? I will approach this subject in detail in the next episode. Here you can see that the guide bar does not align with the motion bracket. There is a bit of adjustment available on the cylinder mountings, which I will need to adjust to make sure that the crosshead guides align with the motion bracket. It's quite important to make sure that the end of the piston rod points directly at the centre of the axle box on the driving wheel. When I check the alignment by eye, it looks like it's slightly too low. This is easily corrected when I fit the cylinders properly. I'm using a drill which is clearance size for 4BA just to clean out all the paint from the holes. As you can see from the lack of chippings, it's removing very little metal. I think it's time to fit the motion bracket on this side. The motion brackets can now be permanently fitted to the chassis. I will paint both of them later when I give the chassis its final coat of paint. I'm pleased to say that all of the bolts align perfectly with the chassis, and the motion brackets are in exactly the same place at both sides. I'm bolting the motion brackets in place onto the chassis using 4BA bolts, and these are just the right length. So far so good, everything appears to be fitting quite well, and even if the motion bracket holes were not in the right place, I could easily fill them in using silver solder and re-drill them. I'm not going to use the original crosshead guide bars. Whoever made these couldn't drill the holes in the right place or the recesses. Never mind though, I do have some steel to make new ones. And I'll machine this guide bar to make a fitting like you can see in this clip, but for the other side. At the moment this guide bar is upside down because the holes generally align better this way. I've turned the chassis around and I'm repeating drilling the clearance holes at this side. And once again you can see that I'm only really removing paint because there's not much in the way of chippings on the bench. I fitted the motion bracket at this side in exactly the same way as I've just shown with the one at the other side. And in common with the fitting at the other side, as you can see, the guide bar is not aligning perfectly, and I will correct this problem very soon in another episode. It's time now to fit one of the crossheads to one of the piston rods. The thread is not the tightest thread in the world, and I will be putting this together eventually with Loctite 603 as well. The last thing I want to happen, or one of the last things that I want to happen, is for the piston rod to work loose when the engine's in steam. Even though I haven't shown it in the video, I've been doing some work on the end of the nuts that hold the crosshead together. This crosshead, by the way, is not built according to the plan. I think possibly the builder decided not to use a milling machine for this part, which is probably just as well. This is built up rather than milled out of a block. With the crosshead tightly screwed onto the end of the piston rod, it's time to find out whether it aligns with the bars, and it sort of does. Any movement that you can see in the crosshead bar is because I'm putting too much pressure on the crosshead. and also it's currently fitted quite loosely. I'll be making a new pair of crosshead guides very shortly, but not in this episode. I'm very keen to find out whether the reversing lever can be fitted in such a position where the reach rod will be able to go through the slot in the cab and connect with the valve gear way shaft operating arm. It should be okay because the original reverser bracket was completely wrong, and I'm glad it fell apart because I wasn't going to use it anyway. By holding the cab lightly in the correct position, I can see where the reverser needs to be. And even though I may have to make a new reach rod, seems to line up with the slot in the cab and also the way shaft operating arm. I'll eventually be fitting these parts permanently, but that's not for a while yet. All I'm doing here is just making sure that the parts line up, and thankfully they do. The best thing to do really is to build the locomotive 100% from scratch. But I enjoy problem solving, so things like this don't bother me. It's quicker doing it this way than building it completely from scratch. But beware, if you're buying a thing like this online, you do need to know what you're buying. Before I bought this engine, I had it on my bench, or should I say my kitchen table, and I could see just what I was buying. That's it for this episode. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.